Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time we are on Everale Ridge playing as the High Elves against the forces of the Dawi, or in this case, Karak Kadrin. And for this match I did want to try out something a little bit different than from my usual fare, though still pretty similar, and swap out the Lords, because normally to go as wide as possible to get the most sort of mileage out of my infantry line, I usually go super cheap and combine and run either Alariel or Teclis to get a combo of Lord plus Caster. But on the forums I've actually been reading up, and several good players, including for example Lotus Moon, recommend that they run a Princess on a, I do believe it was Moon Dragon, instead in this matchup. And I figured, you know, that's interesting. Maybe it has some merit. Maybe it's worth a shot. And I wanted to try it out myself. Because while dragons are not, it's not usually a unit you'd think of going in against dwarves because they've got so much shooting. It definitely has some potential. The princess, of course, can chip away with her shooting attacks. She's got an okay amount of damage, certainly. And of course, breath attacks, they can just melt infantry formations. Now here I'm running with the star dragon, so kind of going all in here. And perhaps that's not the way to go. You probably do want to go with the cheaper dragon normally, but hey, we're going all in. Alongside her, we do have a Mage of Life, because obviously you can't really bring a dragon without healing, especially against something like dwarves. And she does have Book of Hoeth to get more Winds of Magic recharge, regrowth, Earthblood, as well as Life Bloom. So a good amount of healing for our infantry line if needed, and of course regrowth for the dragon. For our firing line, we do have 2 units of Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. These guys, of course, will sort of shoot okay against enemy artillery. They're actually chevron up a little bit because we had some spare chevrons. So they'll be able to trade okay with a cannon. They'll be able to take down things like grudge throwers, organ guns, that sort of stuff, and clear the way for our infantry line later. I should have mentioned the Mage of Life is on a chariot, of course, to give her maximum mobility. Finally, in the back, it is simply 4 units of White Lions, very simplistic sort of great weapon line, and 3 units of Swordmasters, looking to swamp my opponent, crush his front line quickly, and then overwhelm the back line. For my opponent's build, he went wide, and when I say wide, I mean wide. Like, look at this deployment. It's absolutely nuts. And of course, the idea with these sorts of builds, with these super wide builds, is that you've got a horde of speed bumps, you've got all these miners. I don't even know how many. I knew my opponent had a 20 stack here. I forget how many miners exactly he had, but it's like 5 or 6 miners, 5 or 6 miners with blasting charges. He's got Ungrim in there. I think he has a full 6 thunders spread out across the map here, and he does have 2 grudge throwers, a Goblobber, as well as the normal grudge throw, and then 2 cannons, one which is all the way out there. And with this much width, the big problem is that if my infantry comes streaming down, my opponent is then going to be able to just crossfire me with his guns. And if I spread out, once again, he can sort of pincushion certain areas, whittle down certain areas before I can then pivot and deal with others. And so let's say I push in like here, he's going to be able to then focus out this area. Sure, he might lose some units over there, but by the time I've cleared that up, he's going to be, and he'll still have a very powerful force over here. Perhaps be able to shift his miners into position to cover, that sort of stuff. And obviously, if I had cavalry, it would also be an issue because, yeah, sure, my cav can shut down like thunders, but then these thunders would all be unloading on him. All the guns would be unloading on him, and it would just be a very tough situation. Regardless, though, in my deployment phase, I did actually hide all my infantry behind the ridge. In my opinion, that's the way to go if you've got this sort of situation. You don't want your opponent getting free shots on you. I didn't want my opponent to spot my melee infantry and then bombard them with artillery, especially against a faction with so much cannons and catapults like the dwarves. You really don't want to give them those free shots. So we're going to trundle up here with our bolt throwers, looking to get pot shots, looking to knock out my opponent's artillery park. The first target is going to be the cannon. In fact, at the beginning here, I didn't actually spot my opponent's cannons over here, so I was actually a bit surprised that my princess was taking fire. And I didn't notice it initially. I only saw the cannon and I saw the 2 trebuchets there. You can see the princess there picks off a few models with her bow. It only gets 1, so nothing too fancy. But then again, we aren't really relying on her to do bow damage. She's mostly there for the spots. Now shortly our catapults are finally going to get, or bolt throwers are finally going to get into range. They're going to be able to start whittling down this cannon. The cannon is in the meantime trying to tee off on the princess. Bit of a mistake on my opponent's part in my opinion. Because fact of the matter is, he's not going to hit at this range. Not consistently at any rate. I finally kind of wisened up and I'm juking back and forth, evading shots. And denying him the damage he wants, the damage he craves. Anytime the bolt throwers are going to get into position, they're going to trundle up here and start taking pot shots at the cannon. And immediately you can see those 3 bolts sailing out. And with improvements to accuracy, they're actually pretty potent. They immediately take a gun out. This cannon battery, much weaker already. And the rain of bolts is coming in. Now, I'm not entirely sure how cannons... I know that dwarf cannons normally will outtrade a bolt thrower 1-to-1, but with some chevrons, with some experience in there, the bolt throwers will do significantly better. And you can see that crossfire whittling down these guns, doing quite a bit of work, and taking them down slowly but surely, just doing their country proud. And definitely, it's a cost-effective trade. An Eagle Claw bolt thrower with a few chevrons, it's about that 800 gold. So if we can just take the cannons offline, we'll then be in a strong enough spot to basically win the game. In the meantime, bolt throwers continue to fire. Unfortunately, I'm kind of missing the guns a little bit, so perhaps like another chevron or two would be enough to do this consistently. It seems that the accuracy is hugely improved with chevrons, and you can see this cannon here reduced to nothing in the space of just a few volleys, which then frees us up to start firing on these catapults. Now, a big problem for my opponent here is that this cannon over here that it has been teeing off on my lady and failing to hit. Well, it has hit a few times, it's hit like twice, but has been trying to take her out. I was unfortunately behind the lip of the ridge here, and it's not really capable of hitting too much of my bolt throwers. It's finally getting some shots in there, it's finally doing some damage, but it's a bit too late, and now we are teeing off on the Goblobber, the grudge thrower here, and we are taking it down. Definitely some of the bolts here and there are missing. Actually, most of them missed there, which is pretty sad. Pretty sad performance. But in this tit-for-tat exchange, things are going our way. My opponent here is sort of pushing forward with his Thunders, looking to get pot shots. We're actually going to pull our Bolt Thrower crew back here because we don't want to get taken down by the Thunders. And in the meantime, you know, the Goblobber is down to one gun. So, sucks to be them. Just what can you say? The Princess, in the meantime, is up to 9 kills, having sort of chipped away, just firing at will at these poor miners that get in her way. But the Bolt Thrower, you know, is taking down the Goblobber. Soon it's going to be no more. And we're going to fast forward a little bit here, as I finally decide to push in. Now, my opponent did have some zoning tools because he had like 10 miners here, so he's got all sorts of miners all over the place. We are now pushing in, and immediately we are splitting up our troops. And because my opponent pushed his Thunderers forward to try to get shots on the Princess, all of a sudden he is in a bad spot. And you can see we are pushing forward. The Swordmasters piling in. They take a few volleys there from the guns. Unfortunately, these white lines here are forced to soak some blasting charges to the face, but they get in, and they're going to start dicing these miners up with contemptuous ease. Over here, similar thing, these Swordmasters are going to pile into these miners, start tearing them to shreds, and that is going to be a very quick fight. Swordmasters do not mess around. In the meantime, over here, our Mage of Life is looking for an opening, looking to get into that backline. The Bolt Throwers, in the meantime, have reduced the Goblobber to nothing, and have now shifted their fire to the final Grudge Thrower. And at this point, I figured kind of the cannons are not that valuable anymore. In the meantime, we're going to drop a single Earthblood over here on the Swordmasters, who are piling through into the miners, destroying them, and we're kind of just running amok. Unfortunately, my Princess here not being committed, so a bit of misplay on my part. But you can see our Mage of Life there. He's going to pile through, he's going to push through, and look for an opening, look to get into the guns. And you can see the Thunders there trying to slow down Swordmasters, but they are going to get run through by the Chariot. And Swordmasters are on top of him. So the main idea here is that I disrupt my opponent's backline with the Flyers, with my mobile troops. And then once things start getting a bit grim, in the meantime, well, they don't even get that grim here. We're actually going to hit our lady here with a regrowth. So, but once the main idea is that as we bog units down with our mobile units, and then the infantry by then has cleared up the front line, and they're able to breach the back. And you can see the Swordmasters overrunning these Thunders, running them into the ground. My opponent a little slow to flex here. He's trying to use his shooting to shut down my sort of rampaging melee troops. But that does mean that he just doesn't have the tools to block me. So over here, these miners desperately trying to catch the White Lions who are just running amok. Over here, the Dragon pressuring these Thunders, keeping them away. We hit ourselves with another Earthblood Overcast this time. And in the meantime, the Swordmasters breaching the front line. They're overrunning Ungrim. These Swordmasters in perfect health, literally perfect. They haven't even been fighting. I kept them in reserve initially, not wanting to get blasting charged. They're just crushing these miners. And this flank is gone. These Thunders here in full flight. Over here, these miners completely retreating, and now we are going to start swinging this flank over towards the center. And in the meantime, Princess, you know, she's still got 3,000 HP. It always looks bad with these high HP units. It's like Black Orcs, you're looking and you're like, oh, he's basically dead, but they're not really. She's got 3,000 HP. So in the meantime, our caster running amok. She still has 2,000 HP. She does take a hit there, I think, or almost take a hit from a cannon. But the cannon crew in the meantime is being slaughtered in close quarters by the White Lions. Unfortunately, the White Lions are kind of getting swarmed themselves. White Lions with their pitiful melee defense, well, they can obviously beat down miners in a straight up fight. In this situation where they're getting pincered, the miners are actually getting some good value in, and the Thunder is going to be gunning them down. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, those miners were bogged down, or these guns were bogged down for long enough to the point that my opponent in the meantime is losing these Thunders over here. So that's the main thing with this constant stream of pressure. Now our Swordmasters are going to start swinging in, basically taking no damage. Look at these guys, 66 kills. They basically massacred a unit of miners and have taken little to no damage to show for it. Ungrim in the meantime being a pathetic loser as usual. Honestly, Ungrim's pretty sad. This character is just pathetic. But Red Ruin here is active, which is probably worse for him than one would hope. It means the White Lines are hitting more consistently, and they're just dumpstering him. So rough stuff for Papa Ungrim there. In the meantime, the Princess just running amok, firing every now and then with a bow. But the main thing, of course, is that we're keeping these Thunders on their toes. And as the front line is breached, the Swordmasters are piling through now. They're going to get intercepted here by the miners, so they're going to have to slaughter pretty quickly. But at this stage, it is simply clean up in Aisle 9. We've just got a few minutes left in the game. This single unit of Thunderers here that actually had a decent amount of models is being overrun by our regrouped White Lions and our Princess. These Thunderers over here breaking, getting overrun. And now all these healthy Swordmasters were piling in, looking to get a swarming surround. And that is going to be game. Of course, the Princess causing fear and terror was also very nifty, because against these lower-end Dwarven troops, they've still got very good leadership, but it's not quite as high as something like Longbeards with their media psychology, or even Dwarf Warriors, but especially like Ironbreakers or Hammers, or those sorts of elite Dwarven troops can hold so much better against something like a Dragon, but these lower-tier troops don't hold that well. So looking at the losses, obviously the Bolt Throwers did an amazing job. They completely shut down a cannon. They completely essentially shut down a Goblobber, which immediately pays for them just there. And then the fact they took out a Grudge Throw for most part and did some additional damage over time basically meant the Bolt Throwers were stupidly cost effective. The line infantry, of course, did great. The Caster and the Princess did really well. Now the Princess, I do believe I made a mistake by running the Star Dragon instead of the Moon Dragon. It would have been much cheaper, much more efficient, I think, to be running the Moon Dragon there. But I wanted to try it out. I'll figure, you know what, we're going all in. But probably having an extra unit of White Lions or whatever on the field would have probably been the smarter move. For my opponents here, for Luke, honestly, this sort of build is really pretty potent against the High Elves with this much width. The big problem, in my opinion, was that he sort of got sucked in. He wasn't really aggressive early on. He sort of got sucked into an artillery duel that he ended up losing because he didn't start the artillery duel soon enough. I think if both cannons had focused or if he'd focused all of his artillery on my Bolt Throwers, he might have been able to take them out, and that would have put me in a much more compromising position. But because he couldn't do that, he ended up losing the artillery duel pretty handily. It meant his artillery got very little value against my infantry. My infantry sort of piled through. And the other problem was that his Thunders were very preoccupied with my Chariot and my Princess, which meant they weren't as preoccupied with my infantry. And the infantry just... Once this front line of miners collapsed, this back line was so easy to run over. This is one of the amazing things about High Elves, is just how quick their infantry is. All of these troops, I do believe, have 33 speed. So once that front line is down, this back line, this delicious, juicy back line of Thunderers, is a very easy pickings. And that's kind of what happened in that game. My opponent was just not able to protect his Thunders. His Miners just routed off and fled, and we were able to run everything down with the Swordmasters. You can see some of these guys, 144, 110, 101, just dozens of kills. Generating a huge value there. Regardless, well played to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and fun. Yeah, as whether or not the Princess is worth it, I don't know. I still think I prefer Teclis and Alariel. They can still kind of bog units down in melee, even though they're not meant for it. But I don't know. Princess can definitely work. I definitely think she's pretty potent, and the Dragon works. So, but just not my cup of tea, I think. But regardless, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, any requests, don't hesitate to post them, and I will respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.